What's up, friends? Welcome back to Hobby Vomit. It's me, Matt, and I am very excited to be doing another book review for you today. And today I'm reviewing the book, The Immortal Investigation by Michael Cronk. So, Michael Cronk, if you don't know, is a booktuber. His name is, I think he goes by The Book Guy. And a few months back, I suppose, when I was kind of, I've only been into BookTube for about a year. Found him relatively early on. Really like his stuff on his channel. And so he posted a video saying that he was writing a series of books. And yeah, I wanted to support him. And I also tend to agree with a lot of his criticisms here and there. And he has a whole video where he pitched the series, essentially, and about what he was trying to do with it. And so I watched that, felt interested enough to back the Kickstarter. Now, the Kickstarter came with the first 3 books in the series. So I have all 3. I've only read the first one. And so this is an urban fantasy series. Not too long. But yeah, like always on this channel, I'm going to be taking this book through the BARF system. Our BARF system here on Hobby Vomit goes through 4 categories in which we score them out of 5. B stands for believable. How believable are the characters in their setting? A stands for appeal. How appealing was the book? R is rhythm, so the plotting and the pacing. And then F is for feeling. How did the book make me feel? So, again, like always, I will go through all 4 of those categories in a spoiler-free way and score them out of 5. Then I'll give you a final score, which is the average of the 4, and pitch the book to you, whether it might be for you or why it might not be for you. And I'll get into spoilers. So, I normally read the back of the book, so that's what I'm going to do now to give you an idea what The Immortal Investigation is about. So here we go. The Immortal Investigation. Jason Turner dreams of becoming a detective, but things take a strange turn when his roommate asks for a police escort on a date with a supposed vampire. Jason meets Sylvana, a mysterious woman searching for a new husband and maybe a new source of blood. Secrets abound in the quiet seaside town of Plymouth, England. A cult of vigilante monster hunters is gaining popularity, and people claiming to be immortals roam the streets. As Jason grows closer to Sylvana, his attraction deepens, but so does his suspicion, especially when his fellow officers connect him to a bizarre murder involving a bloodless corpse. So yeah, that is what this book is about, and let's jump into the review. Let me pull up my notes. Let me start by saying this is not going to be a very positive review. I didn't care for this book, but I am hoping I will handle this in a respectful way. You know, not every book is for everybody, and when we get to the pitch, I will probably tell you why this book might be for you. But yeah, I did want to get that out of the way. Yeah, I want to just the whole thing of this channel is I want to be honest. I don't want to pull my punches. And hopefully, Michael, if you ever watch this, I hope you understand. I respect the hell out of you for writing a book. It's better than I could ever do. But it's just not to my taste. But so, yeah, here we go. With that out of the way, let's jump into our first category of believable. So, how believable were the characters in their setting? I scored this a 2 out of 5. I didn't find the characters very believable or likable, honestly. Especially I didn't particularly like the main character or the love interest. I thought the villain was very weak. It was very much like in the style of like a superhero, like an MCU villain, where just like it's just like I want power. It's just like a power grab instead of like at no point I was like, you know what, I kind of get it, and that's what I like in a good villain, a nuanced villain, and I didn't find this to be that. I found the villain to be very lackluster in this. Our main character, Jason, I have a lot of problems with Jason. And you know what? Maybe I should just say this up front. Like I said, this is an urban fantasy. I've only read 2 other urban fantasy books. One was the first Dresden Files book, and the second was The Ninth House by Leah Bardugo. I very much did not like the first Dresden Files. I found Harry Dresden to be a very bad main character. I didn't like him at all, and the way he like looked at women and stuff was a big problem for me, and I just didn't like it. I'm also not a big crime person, as I've talked about on this channel, so it could very much be that I just don't like urban fantasy and the style that comes with urban fantasy, because I heard John over Talking Story pitch this as kind of like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I think he absolutely nails that. It is very much like Harry Dresden or a Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's like fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but I still feel like I want compelling characters and characters that that feel real. And unfortunately, Jason doesn't feel real to me. And just like all the characters in this book, they almost feel like sitcom characters, like The Office characters, right? Like Kevin from The Office or Michael Scott. It's fun to watch that on the screen for a little bit, for like an episode at a time. But no part of me is like, oh yeah, I could see there being an Office. Like Kevin's not a real person. These aren't real people, and they don't, no part of me is believing these are real people. They're just like cartoon characters, or very exaggerated characteristics. And that's how all the characters in this book felt. And so I just had a hard time taking it seriously or connecting with them. And, maybe that wouldn't be a problem, but it's coupled with a lot of very serious topics. And I don't think it meshes well, because a lot of these serious topics that get brought up, they feel like they're there just for the authorial message, if that makes sense. So I'll talk about that more probably as we go on. But overall, I didn't like the main character. I didn't like the villain. I didn't really like the supporting cast very much. So just a 2 out of 5. I think there's definitely moments about each of these characters I liked. I just never felt like these were real. I never felt transported to the world and felt like they were real problems or anything. A lot of their problems just existed because the author told me they existed. So 2 out of 5 for believability. Next, moving on to appeal. I gave this a 3 out of 5. So for me personally, it probably would be lower, because I think I just am not interested in urban fantasy, but I know there's a big market out there for it. So I still gave this a 3 out of 5 because I think there's some decent world building in here, and the monsters or the different types of let's see, let me make sure I don't think I'm spoiling anything, but like there's like I'll just say the monster hunters and the different monsters and stuff. What comes with urban fantasy, right, is the different creatures and stuff like that. All that's fun, and the world building is actually pretty good, and I wanted to know more. Unfortunately, I don't think this book offers enough of it. It almost feels like a setup for a bigger world we're going to get a lot more of in the future books. But I think this book could have used a lot more of it to incentivize me to continue reading. So I don't really have too much more to say about that. If you like, I think there's some okay humor in it, although I think it's a little heavy-handed. It feels like there's always like a joke, and some of the jokes are like, I don't know. It's like inner monologuing that nobody would actually say. I don't think it's just there to make the reader laugh, and it doesn't feel natural. Like when I think about the humor in like a Joe Abercrombie book, a lot of that feels natural. It doesn't feel like the character's trying to get the reader to laugh. And that's what a lot of the jokes in this book kind of come off as, is like, I felt like the characters were trying to get me as the reader to laugh, and it just kept taking me out of it. But as far as the world building, I think it's a cool world. The monsters were fun, and the blend of like real world and fantasy world was pretty cool. It was interesting, but nothing outstanding or nothing super appealing to me. So a 3 out of 5 for me. Rhythm, I gave this also a 3 out of 5. It's pretty well paced. It's very fast paced. I will give it that. It wasn't a slog by any means. It's not a super long book or anything, but it's very easy to read. So it's very readable. And so I will give that for the rhythm. I think the rhythm was pretty good. Or for the pacing, I'm sorry, not the rhythm. I did have some problems with the plot. It's a mystery. It's a murder mystery, like it talks about, and I've talked about it on this channel. To me, I don't care if it's something that I solve previous to finding out what the answer is, and in which case I did in this book. I did know what the answer was before it was revealed to me, and I don't care about that. That's not the problem. The problem is our main character is a detective, or a wannabe detective. He wants to be a detective, and I get that he's young and inexperienced, and that's fine, right? Like, I get that he could make some mistakes, but when he's making those mistakes, but then also like inner monologues that like, and then I thought about this because I could leave no stone left unturned, but then leaves like the one stone that is important unturned. It's like the fact that you're saying that you got to be a good detective and make sure you don't leave things, forgotten, and then you forget the one thing. It just felt, I don't know. That just bothered me a lot. And then I just don't know. I didn't understand like the tone of, I guess that's more character, but plot wise, other than that, I didn't love the reveal of the mystery because of that, not because I figured it out. I don't have a problem with that, as long as it's done in a good way, and I didn't feel like it was done in a good way here, unfortunately. But the action sequences are good. There's a romance subplot, which, again, I think because the lack of believability of the characters, I had a hard time buying into the believability of the romance. And there is some heavy, very sexual scenes in this book. It felt like, I've not read a ton of romantasy or romance, but it like borderlines reading porn. And, I don't have a problem with that. I don't know if I felt like that relationship earned it so much, especially because I wasn't connected with the characters, so I certainly didn't feel connected for their sex scenes, which were graphic and long, and, I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. It's just something to know. It's in there. I actually think that they're pretty well written. Excuse me. I think they're pretty well written, but it kind of reminds me, not to keep compared to Joe Abercrombie, because I don't think that's fair, but just tonally, the romance in this book, it reads like romance in the movies, where it's very exaggerated, and it's like, the rose-tinted glasses kind of thing. It just didn't really work for me. Don't have a problem with it, but I would have liked it more if I had connected more with the characters. And the other plot problem I had, and this kind of goes in with characters as well, is that I think the author has a lot to say. I think Michael has a lot to say on his views, like political views and inclusivity and things like that, which is fine. I don't have any problem with that. And in fact, I would say I probably align with Michael on a lot of his views, if not all of them, that he presents in this book. But I think there, again, a right way to include it in a book, and a way that feels like it's being included for the sake of being included. And that's what all the problems the main character face. It seems like they're just placed there by the author so that he can overcome them, and the author can tell us why that's a good thing. And it just doesn't feel real. And so a lot of the plot points that happen in this book are because of that. And so I just found myself having a hard time buying into these plot points, which had me struggling to buy into the story as a whole. I'll just leave it at that. So 3 out of 5. I think the pacing is good. I did have a problem with the plot. And then last is feeling. This back down to a 2 out of 5. I kind of talked about this and all the other things. I didn't feel very much in this book. Sure, I laughed some, but for the amount of jokes per page, it felt like most didn't land because, like I said, it felt like the characters felt more like a sitcom character than a real person. And so, and then that was with like the humor, and then the other feelings, like the emotional feelings, I didn't feel that as well because it just felt like the authorial voice insert of like telling me you I'm going to make you feel this way. I'm putting this in the book to make you feel this way, to question maybe your beliefs or things like that, which, again, I don't have a problem with an author writing that into their book. It's just when it's so obvious, it took me out of it. So 2 out of 5. So unfortunately, I do land on an average. My final score is a 2.5 out of 5. Certainly not a bad book by any means. And again, a lot of respect to Michael for getting this done. And doing 3 in one go is also very impressive. And for this to be your debut novel, I think there's a lot of good here. But let me sell it too, because I think this will clear a lot of things up as well. I think if you like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or if you like Dresden Files, or you like the idea of like not being just reading a story for the story and you don't need to feel that deep connection to characters, I think you'll really like this book. I think there's a lot to like. There's humor that, humor's always subjective. So while some of the humor didn't work for me and it felt heavy-handed, you might love it. And if you do love it, you're going to love this book because there's a ton of humor. If you're okay with, I don't want to call the characters like dum-dums, but they kind of are sometimes. If you're okay with that, and I'm okay with that, right? If it feels believable, then I'm okay with that. But like, they're not very believable. It's more of just like, oh, is that what you would do in that situation? All right, I guess I'll just roll with it. If you're okay with just rolling with it, and really that's what I'd say. If you're okay with just rolling with the punches, I think you could have a good time reading this. And it's a quick little read, and it does set up for a bigger world and a lot more out there. So if you like urban fantasy, or you want more urban fantasy, because I know that that's something that a lot of fantasy readers want, and there's not a ton out there, I think this is a good pickup for you, and I think you will have a good time reading it. So yeah, that's my pitch. I don't think it's for you if you are a very character-driven reader and you want believable characters, including the villain, right? I think that does include the villain. I like having a good villain, and I didn't find the villain very compelling in this one. So that's my spoiler-free review of the Immortal Investigation at 2.5 out of 5. I will say I'm not going to continue this series. My one wish, because I think I actually would continue the series if the Kickstarter wasn't the way it was, because he wrote all 3 books together in one go and published them all. So I have the first 3 books. And I really would have preferred if he had written the first book, taken some feedback, and applied that to his next book. But I don't think, from my tastes, I want to read 2 more books of this. And the 2 books after this are bigger too. And so I just don't think it's for me. If he had waited and published the other one later, then I'd be like, okay, I want to see how he grew as a writer. Then I would pick it up. And I'm very open to picking up something else of his in the future. Yeah, because I think, writing a book is hard. I could never do it. So, I hope that I went about this in a semi-respectful way. I'm trying to be respectful, but I also want to be honest. And this book just wasn't for me. So that's my spoiler-free section. I'm going to get into spoilers here in a couple moments. So if you've not read the book, hopefully you've been able to hear enough to where you can decide whether it's for you or not. And if you have read the book or you don't care about spoilers, then welcome to the spoiler section. I didn't write down any specific notes for this. I'm just going to kind of go off my memory. It's been a minute since I finished this book. I just kind of got backlogged with making reviews. And so I'm going to do this from memory. Sorry, my eyelashes keep tickling me. So, just like normal, we'll mostly talk about characters and plot points for the spoiler section. So, characters. Let's just get out of the way. I hate... I didn't like the villain, the roommate. The roommate was just like, I'm doing all the bad stuff because I want power, and that's why. And he just was one of those forgettable MCU villains, Like the villain from all those MCU movies where it's like they exist only for the good guys to overcome something. and I just don't like it. I just don't like that for my taste. You know, I want a villain that I can like almost get behind, right? And then I feel conflicted as a reader, and you can really get into that conflict. And I never felt that with this. Even from page 1, it's already weird. Like, I've never really heard of people escorting each other on dates when they're like 20. I don't even know how old Jason is. I think he's like early 20s. I think he's just out of university. And I don't know. I just never heard of that. And then Sylvana is she's very much like she has these. She's a vampire, and she's old, a lot older than Jason, which I was already like, okay, a little weird, because isn't he like pretty young for her? Like, if she's like 150 or whatever, however old she is, a lot older than him, which is fine. I get it. That's like a vampire thing. The thing that bothered me about Sylvana is her and her family being stuck in their ways of like, she can't have blood unless she's married. And this was one of the major points that felt like a problem that the author created just to be overcome with the message of like, well, marriage, we don't have to believe the values that our family instills upon us, and sometimes the values aren't always right. And again, I agree with all of these messages in here. I agree with the inclusivity and the mental health awareness and all of it. Again, I think I align with Michael on all of it. I just don't like that all of these problems are presented in a way just so the author can tell me that. They don't feel realistic, and it doesn't feel realistic that Sylvana, living in 2020 or whatever, is still going to believe these values regardless of how she's, especially being that old. You know what I mean? Like, I don't buy into it. I had a really hard time buying into that. So that I had a problem with. Sylvana, I just, like, gender roles in a relationship, I agree with the message, but those, like, she's like, oh, well, I don't want to work out in front of you because men don't like it when women are strong. And Jason, being the good guy, is like, well, I don't care. I think the equality is important. It's like, it just is very heavy-handed, right? Like, I agree with it. I want to make it clear. I know I've said it a bunch, but I do want to make it clear. I agree with it. I agree with all of that. It's just like those scenes just felt like it existed for Michael to tell me how he feels about it. And for Jason to be just like this good guy. Like, he's the best. He's the best good guy. And I don't know. I just didn't like it. Didn't like Sylvana's family very much. Didn't like Jason's coworkers very much. They felt very sitcom-y. Like, there's the guy that I'm the guy that talks about my family all the time, and every time I'm on the page, I'm going to talk about my family, lol. And it just didn't feel like a real character. He didn't feel like a real person. He just felt like he was there to make the joke. And that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And then, I can't even think of the villain's name. Peter. Is it Peter? Yeah, Peter. So Peter's the bad guy. Peter is Jason's friend in the beginning of the book. Turns out to be the bad guy. Super obvious, which is fine. Again, totally fine. But yeah, the moment where, like, the whole, like, setup for Jason and Sylvana's relationship feels very, very forced. It's like Peter and Sylvana are out on a date because she needs to get married. And then within that same date, like, they both stay the night at her house, but then she comes out and ends up not wanting to be with Peter and immediately asks Jason to marry her, which is awkward and uncomfortable. But then Jason's like, yeah, you know what? Screw Peter. I'm just going to go out with her. She doesn't belong to Peter. And it's like, yeah, but, like, dang, dude, what about your friend? Like, I don't know. Like, at least ask him politely. I don't know. It just felt very weird. And then it's like, then they're dating. And that whole thing felt strange. But when the first murder happens, Jason makes it a point to inner monologue to himself of, like, I can't leave anybody out of the equation. Even Sylvana could be the bad guy. And I'm just like, dude, you can't say you can't leave anybody out of the equation and then leave Peter out. Like, the friend that has involvement. And it's just like, I don't know. It just feels convenient that again, I can get behind the fact that Jason is a young cadet or whatever, just out of school, wants to make detective, but is kind of still young and dumb. But then, like, the fact that he's saying these things, like, well, I cannot forget to do this, and then immediately proceeds to forget to do that. It's just, I just found it silly. And, like, also Jason with him, like, shooting his gun. Like, dude, the whole problem is you got in trouble for shooting your gun. And literally any problem. Like, what kind of cop are you, dude? Like, you're the worst cop. Every single problem, anything happens, he's just like, I'm going to shoot at it. I'm going to shoot at it. And it's like, dude, chill. You already got in trouble for this, and all of your problems are arising because you're just shooting at everything, and then he just proceeds to shoot at everything. And maybe that's supposed to be written in like a humorous way. It just didn't land for me. To me, it just felt like, dude, what? Like, how are you a cop? How are you a cop? And especially, how are you a cop that wants to be a detective? It just doesn't feel tonally right with his character. So. And then the other problem I had, sorry, I know I'm rambling, and I'm sorry. But something I didn't understand. So there's a bunch of immortals, which I think this is one of the strong suits of this book. I think the immortals and the immortal system is really interesting, and I want to know more about it. And I wish we got more of it. We just got a little taste of it in this book, and that is the single thing that I am intrigued to learn about more. I don't care if I never saw Jason or Sylvana again. I want to know about this world more because the creatures are very cool. The monsters are cool. The way they blend into our world was super cool. But, so anyways, yeah. So Peter is a wizard, right? And so the immortals they all live older than human beings with some flexibility, right? Some live 300 years longer. Some live, I don't know, like 100 years longer or whatever. And so that makes sense with Sylvana. She is old. I can't remember exactly how old she is, but she's old. I think she's like 80 or anywhere from like 80 to like 100 or something like that, but old. But she still has the body or physique of a like a 20-year-old. And so, right, that's just the way they age. So that makes sense. But then Peter, he's a wizard, so I don't know if they just live a lot shorter or what. But one of the things that I have a problem with the mystery is that Peter and Jason went to grade school together, which means Peter sure as hell wasn't looking like a 20-year-old when he was in 4th grade, even though like the way that the logic of the aging works, he should have, because it just doesn't make sense that he grew at the same rate as Jason, a human, but he's an immortal. And that's to like throw you off the scent, I think, of like that it's him, but it just doesn't make sense when that's revealed. Because why does Sylvana not age, but he does? I didn't get that part, and so that was a little felt like a bit of a disconnect, and maybe it's just me totally missing something. It probably is, but I did miss that. I'm trying to think of some other things that I could say that I liked. Again, I liked all the messaging. The mental health awareness and the dealing with suicide and Jason's abusive father towards his mother and all of that, and him like finding a parental figure in his boss. Like on paper, I love it. Not literally on paper, but like, as an idea, I love it. But I had a problem with presentation. I think that's the big problem I have with the entire book is presentation. So I'm fishing for more. I want to say more positive things because I think that I know this is skewing negative because I had some issues I needed to get out. I think there's a lot of good in here. I think I do. I really do. I think there's a lot of good in here. It also could just be a matter of I was reading this at the same time as like Malazan and Stephen King, where I just felt like every time I was reading this, I wanted to be reading something else. And so I think that is, I'm not a huge romance guy, maybe. I don't know if that's true, though. This type of romance with these types of characters. And I'm a very character-driven reader. So I think that is a problem for me. And I think I just don't like urban fantasy. You know, I didn't love Dresden. I didn't love this. I thought Ninth House was fine. So, but do I think this like belongs? Do I think this stands up next to the first Dresden Files? Yes, I do. I really do. In fact, I might like this more than the first Dresden Files. I think it's more readable. And, you know, like I said with Harry Dresden, he's like a womanizer, and I hated him. Him, I couldn't stand. The way every time a woman first appeared, he would just like check them out and describe their boobs. It's like, dude, come on. And so this has the same problem on the opposite side of the spectrum. And you know what? If I had to pick one, I would certainly take the one that is trying to push like mental health awareness and equality and gender roles in a relationship and all of this good stuff. The messaging is good. It's just the execution. So yeah, I do think this stands up next to the first Dresden Files. So, you know, I hope if anything, Michael, if you did watch this and you made it this far, one, I'm sorry. And two, I hope that says something, that I think that this is as good, if not better, than the first Dresden Files. Because I think that's an impressive feat. I think it's more of a me problem than the book problem. And I hope I made that clear. But like I said, when I made this channel, I wasn't going to pull any punches. I was going to be honest about the way I felt, and that was how I felt about this book. So I won't be continuing it, but I have a lot of respect for Michael, and I think there's certainly an audience out there. I know John from Talking Story loved it, and I think if you align with his takes, I think him pitching it as a Buffy the Vampire parallel is perfect. It really does feel like that. So, yeah. I think that's it. I think that's all I'm going to say about the book. The Immortal Investigations by Michael Cronk. 2.5 out of 5 for me. Yeah. Check it out if you're interested. If you've read it, let me know. If you disagree, I totally get it. And, yeah. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Matt. This is Hobby Vomit, and we will see you for the next one. Goodbye.